Thursdays, what I like to also do is have a segment called Travel Thursday. This is something I began doing in the COVID-19 pandemic, where we were all stuck at home and we were dreaming about places that we would like to visit. And I said, why not talk about things that we could put on our bucket list? But of course, you have to plan for this. So allow me to introduce my guest today, who is a travel expert and someone who visits a lot of places. She's Purva Joshi, who's joining us from Dehradun today. Purva, thanks so much for taking the time, and pleasure having you on my program. We're going to talk about a place in Ladakh today. Can you tell us more about what you've selected?
Hi, Alex. Thank you for having me in this show. And we are going to talk about Zanskar, which is a very, very beautiful part of Ladakh. And it is one of my top destinations in India. And even if I have to pick one destination around the world, it would be Zanskar because it's that beautiful.
And what we're going to do is, while we're speaking to you, Purva, we're going to put some of your content, things that you have actually gone out and shot, and I must say, it's really beautiful, the visuals that you've managed to capture. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you can get there? What's the best time to travel?
So getting there is not as easy as of now because the roads are still coming up. So you can either take your own vehicle if you're an expert 4x4 driver, or you can get a taxi. The best time would be around June to November, but you can also go around the winters if you're somebody who loves adventures and extreme sports. But yeah, June to November is a good time to go.
Okay. And if you're traveling either solo or with somebody else or in a group, what are the do's and don'ts that you need to be aware of?
Most part of Zanskar is in the high altitude. So there's like this mountain called the Gombo Rangjon, which is above 14,000 feet. So I think whatever you need to take into account that you're going into high altitude. So you need to prepare your body in that way. You need to drink lots of water. There's a saying called, don't be Gama in the land of Lama. So you don't have to overexert yourself. And if you follow all these precautions, you can have a very good time and not fall sick.
So from that perspective, I've heard that if you go to a high altitude area, which I've not experienced myself, hopefully someday, and maybe it's going to be Zanskar, but if you have to spend a little bit of time to acclimatize yourself. So are you talking about spending a decent amount of days? Should you be willing to go for at least a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think for Zanskar, you need at least 7 to 10 days for to properly explore it. And before that, if you're going on road, like you can start from Manali and then slowly start to go up. So that is also a good way to acclimatize. If you're starting from Leh, then you'll need at least 2 days to acclimatize in Leh itself.
Okay, so a few days to acclimatize in Leh. What is the kind of money that you need to set aside? And this, of course, is going to be completely dependent on the experience that you have. So what are the options available?
So I would say for a trip that's a week or 10 days, you'd need at least 50,000 because they're not, local transport is not that readily available here. That's why you'll have to either depend on your own vehicle or you'll have to get a taxi, which are not that cheap. So I would say 50,000 if you're looking for a week.
Person? And this is per person, Purva?
Yes, definitely per person. But if you're going in a bigger group, the expenses can be shared and it could come down to a cheaper cost.
Okay. And what about staying facilities? So do you book places in advance? Are there hotels? Are there hostels that you look at?
So there are different places, and no, you cannot book everything in advance. For example, if you go from Manali towards the mountain that I talked about, Gombo Rangjon, you can camp there, and the costing would be around 1,500 to 2,000 for the night. And then if you go further up to Phuktul Gompa, let's say, then there's no connectivity there. So there's possibly you can't reach out to them beforehand. So you can just reach this village called Purne, and you can stay there for 2,000 to 2,500 a night. And so basically, if you stay in Leh, Manali, or Padum, you can easily find an accommodation and you can pre-book as well. But then if you're exploring all these other places, then it's definitely not that easy. Once you reach, you can get something reasonable to stay.
Okay. What about the other experiences? So obviously, this is something that would call out to the hearts of all of those adventurers out there. But what are the things that you should absolutely do?
I feel like one of the highlights of Zanskar is the Fuktal Gompa. It's a 2,500 years old monastery, and you can only reach there by foot. And once you're walking on that trail, it is just so beautiful. There's this Zanskar river flowing beneath you, and you're walking on this deserted mountain. And then once you reach, you can see the entire Gompa, which is on a cave. And I think it's one of the most peaceful places I have ever been to, and I totally recommend other people to go there.
That sounds absolutely incredible. In fact, I'm practically dreaming that I'm there right now, the way that you're describing it. What about food, Purva?
I would say for somebody who loves a lot of spicy food, not a lot of options, but if you're somebody who loves meat, then you can try a mutton thuppa, which is very readily available there. And there's something called a butter tea, which is a milk tea with salt in it. You find these in other areas as well of Uttarakhand and Himachal, but it's definitely something to try. It's an acquired taste for sure, but I personally like it. It helps me keep warm in the cold temperatures.
Oh yeah, that's certainly something to bear in mind, right? Because is it cold round the year? Do you have to prepare accordingly because you have to get layers, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's cold around the year, but as as September, October, if you're going around those months, it's even colder. And if you're camping, like I said, in Gombo Rangjon, it is definitely not easy, and you have to keep that in mind before you plan the trip and keep enough layers so that you can be warm at night, especially.
Okay. The other thing is, if you're a pure vegetarian, and as so many of us are, what do you have to bear in mind? Do you have enough options available?
I would say there are options, but if you are a person who cannot compromise with taste, you should carry something of your own as well. Like, especially if you're taking your own car, a small burner and a utensil where you can cook a little bit of things on your own, or some masalas with you, so that you can, add a little flavor to the food that has been served to you. Then that will be great.
Instant noodles always to the rescue in that situation as well. But what about the people? Because this is something that is so important, right? You go to a place and you have to interact with the people. What are they like, and what are the languages that you would speak there?
The people are incredibly sweet and very welcoming. It is actually very inspiring to see that they're living this life, which is so hard, coming from the city where we have all the luxury. And now these people are just walking kilometers just to reach their home, or they have to walk kilometers just to, buy something that they need. It's very, very inspiring to see that. And they usually speak Ladakhi over there, and they have different dialects in different places, but it's similar mostly.
Okay. And so do you need somebody to translate for you?
No, almost all of them also know Hindi and English, because a lot of tourists also come there. So it's not that difficult to communicate with the people there.
Fantastic. I think you've painted a lovely picture for us, Purva. Thanks so much for joining us on this program.
Thank you, Alex, for having me. It was so nice.
All right, that brings us to the end of this edition of Your Money Matters. We've spoken about some interesting things today. Let us know what you think in the comment section, and do stay tuned. This is NDTV Profit.